Hello everybody and welcome back to the LJL Officially Unofficial, bringing you English coverage of the LJL 2020 Summer Split Week 6 game number 2. I'm your host, Alex, otherwise known as Lexi, by Master One here, and of course I'm joined by the illustrious good brother duo that is Initialized and Nymera. Gentlemen, game number 2 for us. This is the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks Gaming facing off against Sengoku Gaming. Both teams are on interesting places with where they're currently playing. Sengoku are having a mixed super week so far. Some good games, some pretty bad games, some questionable losses as well. On the other side, the Hawks have been looking pretty solid.
Yeah, they have. Hawks had a rough game versus CGA. Let's make no bones about it. It was off a level 1 flash blown onto Honey. Gango and Grendel then flat out ran over the game. It was not pretty. Gango ended up with something like 51 to 52% of the damage share by himself. Like, it was a swift game. It was not a particularly close one. They then had a game versus DFM, where we're perhaps seeing that the coaching staff is starting to make a difference. Tussle and Dasher had a phenomenal game on the Lee Sin and the Echo, looking super, super good, making some beautiful plays across the map.
We've always known that the Hawks have had these individual players with some caliber. It's about how they all slot together. So what we're really looking for their 2 games in the last day of Super Week is to try and again convince us that those pieces are starting to move in tandem and see if they can do it versus one of the upper tier teams once again in Sengoku.
Yeah, and to do it versus Sengoku would really place them in a pretty solid place. However, that's not going to be easy, as we just witnessed Sengoku Gaming throwing the hammer down, as it would be, in a decisive way and saying, hey, no, we're not going to give anybody wins. And Burning Core, it's pretty easy to say at the moment, are a better team than the Hawks at the moment, and Sengoku went to the Burning Core pretty convincingly, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's fair. What I will say as a potential counter is that I think Dasher is a stronger laner right now than Yujo by quite a significant margin. And maybe that could be the lane kingdom being a harder thing to execute straight out against the Hawks. You need to rely more on the macro stuff. And if you're going to pull off level 1 invades like they did in the last one, could end up being a bit risky.
But then on that other side, Aramik is having to be compared to Rayfaki, and which is a stronger comparison at the moment? Yu-Gi-Oh to Dasher in their current performance, or Aramik to Rayfaki? I think I know who I personally might hand it to.
I think there is an argument on both sides, in
Yeah,
fact. It's not quite as clean cut as because I know you were just saying that, but now thinking about it, I'm like, Rayfaki's been really good, but Dasher's been really good too. Of course, he finished off 8-1 and 7 versus DFM in their upset win there. So it's not necessarily as clean cut as I would have thought about it. Now I bring up the point. So lots of things to be compared between the two teams today, at least, and I'm looking forward to seeing how our expectations are met or decidedly not.
With that said, our expectations, gentlemen, what are they? Initialize. I went to you first previously, so it's Nymera's turn to go first.
Mated.
Oh yeah, completely. Nymera, who are you predicting to win this game?
So it's the balancing of, is Sengoku completely back, or is that an exploitable flaw base against the Hawks with a new coaching staff, which people haven't adapted to yet? I think I am going to go with the Hawks.
Okay.
I'm not completely convinced by Sengoku. I think that they were lucky to get away with a lot of what they did versus Burning Core in that level 1. I think if they do that versus a stronger mid lane jungle 2v2, as I said with my reasoning for Sengoku winning against Burning Core, it's not going to be quite as easy versus the Hawks, and I've got some faith in them now.
That's fair. Initialize?
I think it is hard to go against Sengoku. I think they've generally proven to be a pretty good team this split, and the Hawks have won 1 game, lost 1 game in quite different fashions. I'll give it to Sengoku Gaming, but I think whereas at the start of the split it was like 90% Sengoku, I put this one more like 60-70% Sengoku at the minute. I think there is enough laning prowess and enough macro knowledge to give Sengoku an edge, even if I do think there are pretty obvious inroads for the Hawks to try and take this game away.
Well, I'm going to stick with my predictions that I did at the beginning of Super Week before we had seen any of these games, and I was pretty confident in Sengoku winning this. Now, while the Hawks have beaten Dead Nation Focus Me, they did still lose to the tied second place team at the time, and that was Crest Gaming Act. So I'm pretty confident in the boys of Sengoku to hopefully continue their level of play. Yeah, absolutely. And a return to form for them. This is a team you would expect to go a minimum 3-1 in Super Week. So I'm kind of putting that expectation onto them. And if they don't do it, it just brings up more content to bring up on our podcast. If you don't already listen or watch it.
I see this as an absolute win.
Oh, it's
the content is just coming. 16 games worth of content. Are you ready?
Oh god, I'm not ready, and that's going to... we've got to try and have it to be only 2 hours. But gentlemen, as this is a blast from the past, where are we going to be prioritizing the lanes here?
I think that it's got to be top lane. I think it has to be. I think Apperman is the kind of guy where he's got a couple of his crutch picks right now. If you take them away from him, I think Sengoku falter. Okay. So I'm looking towards top lane. And Aramik, of course, is kind of the same on the Hawks. Pick and ban's going to be very important.
So I'll agree, but only in that I actually think the jungle could really decide this, and I wonder whether it's actually going to be more jungle that make this interesting. But the reason I think they will focus top lane is because both of these players have had interesting weak side moments. Sengoku Gaming have nullified that by just basically playing Apperman as top side, strong side, right? That said, if it's ever left where either are left on an island, we've seen them end up doing interesting things. So I'm going to go with the top lane too.
Okay. I'm actually going to be going completely for the bot lane. And part of the reason is Yutori Moashi and Enti just had a gorgeous game, and I'm still not fully convinced that Honey and Pooh aren't a slight hindrance to the team a little bit. While I will continue to be a Honey supporter, I do also have to admit they are potentially the weakest players sometimes on the side of the Hawks and could get punished in some spots, especially if Blank wants to give a little bit of priority over to this bot lane if they feel like it's exploitable and they can find a way of winning the game through 2 members or 3 members rather than forcing it through upper men. But I mean, it worked beautifully fine just forcing it through upper men last game, so if it ain't broke, why try and fix it? Gentlemen, it's that time where I depart from you, but you continue on the legacy of the LJL officially unofficial in that pick and ban phase. Oh wait, we're in pick and ban phase, gentlemen. Take it away.
The blast from the past continues, and we will go on without Yamaswan, alas. Poor Yorick. Maybe picked in this game, actually.
Potentially.
Before we go too much further, let's run down some of these rosters we can meme later. It'll be the Hawks, of course, on the blue side this time out versus Sengoku Gaming on the red, and the Hawks roster is Aramik, Tussle, Dasher, and of course that 100-acre bot lane of Honey and Pooh, looking to fight off against Sengoku Gaming.
Once again on the red side, it's Sengoku though, it's Apperman, Blank, Perion, Utorimiyashi, and NT.
Got a few bans in already. Tussle's Lee Sen taken out. He had a fabulous game on it yesterday, alongside the Aphelios ban. The other side, it is Renekton, which again is one of those Apperman crutch picks. The Bard away from NT, and of course that Twisted Fate, which we know Perion is quite famous for over here in the LJL.
We're talking about, Yorick might get played. Well, could do if the Hawks are going to ban away stuff like Renekton, which Apperman has been crutching towards, potentially forcing Apperman onto something which he hasn't been playing quite as much recently. Perion similarly not going to get that Twisted Fate, which is something that Sengoku used to make Apperman feel very safe on the top side of the map. Lexi was talking about focusing on this bot lane. One of the best picks in the meta right now is that Ashe. If you want to hold Utorimiyashi and NT a little bit accountable, one of the ways you can do that is trying to set up onto that bot lane. You might have to lock in something like the Jhin Bard again, though.
Bard is banned, but the Jhin is certainly there, and it has been Utoromiyashi's go-to this weekend. This will be his 3rd time, I believe, on the pick this weekend. Having looked middling, he's had 1 win, 1 loss thus far.
Looked good in the mid. He looked pretty good in the late game versus Axis, but then of course wasn't enough to carry it. But some of his ults in that Axis game were not so great. However, versus Burning Core was a lot more successful. The Bard can't be locked in alongside it. It was banned second by the Hawks. However, one of their picks they're reprising from their previous win today is that Nidalee for blank.
Nidalee for blank is a pretty helpful. Well, not bad. Helpful is the wrong pick. It's a pretty standard. Yeah, it's a pretty standard pick for blank. I think is where I was trying to go with that before I muddled my words a touch. Looked towards it quite a lot, found a lot of success with it. Jin's a great way of setting it up. Deadly Flourish is up before Ash's Arrow is, could be doing things earlier on. Volley Bear will be locked in alongside the Zoe.
Look at that 18% win rate.
It's not been looking good. Of course, you've got to remember the teams that have been picking it up. It's been a lot from Axis, who've not looked fabulous on it. DFM picked it up once as well, and they've been on a bit of an odd streak as well themselves. This Super Week hasn't been particularly good for our reigning champions, let's be fair. But Sengoku Gaming will go for a half a run back here. It's the LeBlanc locked in again for Pyrion.
More interesting for me is that the Hawks went for a blind Zoe. It is a relatively good blind pick, but you do want a certain kind of composition for Zoe to work out. I mean, we saw CGA losing to Axis with that Zoe mid lane because it was just kind of a bit off theme. As much as you can be very good at that pick, Arya, it was the guy on that champion for CGA, of course. He was really good at that champion. Didn't mean that his team won. His team won. He couldn't really make that pick work.
Oh, so it's a bit more on theme in this comp, though, I think.
And that's the thing, though, right? But it does mean that Sengoku potentially look at it and kind of say, look, they kind of want to fight front to back, slow down the game a bit. We need to ban out some of the stuff which could potentially make that happen. Banning away the Mordekaiser, which is that pseudo frontliner and can lock people in place a bit more. Whereas the Hawks, banning away more of our Apperman's comfort champions, the Aatrox being the first and foremost of them. And that's taken away.
Aatrox is gone. Imagine a little bit more focus towards Apperman. Perhaps something like the Gangplank comes to mind as well as something that Apperman has indexed towards.
Still available.
Wukong's
wasn't seen at all last game either. Also, a good way to get onto Ashe, good way to get onto Zoe. I wouldn't mind Hawks getting rid of that. But of course, there might be something like the Thresh removed from them first. Sengoku banning away the Wukong themselves.
Aramik has looked pretty good on the Wukong when he's had that option available to him.
Sengoku had first pick here.
Maybe they're wanting to save the top lane for counter pick here. Remember, they've already picked for Pyrion, so they can't save it for him. Camille will rebound as well. That's something else that Apperman has been looking towards. And it's been quite notorious that Apperman has had a small champion pool in the past, especially after his time off. So the GP is the only one remaining that comes to mind that he has played the split. Kennen. He didn't look particularly good on that.
No, he didn't, but it's still available. That's my problem now. Apperman doesn't have his comfort champions. If Hawks are going to win, and as I was saying, I think that Hawks might well win, a lot of it might be through Apperman getting upset in that top side. Of course, Sengoku do have that strong mid lane jungle 2v2 once again. Sengoku not picking up the Thresh themselves, I don't know if I like that. I know that the Nautilus is more dedicated and engaged, but this allows the Hawks to reposition their Zoe and Ashe a lot better. I really think that Thresh would have been a good takeaway for Sengoku. They locked in the Nautilus themselves, given over that Thresh, and it looks like Aramik might be going towards that cannon.
And just take it away again from Apperman, who's now got to ask the question, well, what on earth do you pick, sir? Setsband, Mordekaiser. If he's thinking about a Fiddlesticks here, that would be something pretty spicy.
Silas is available.
Okay. Gnar into cannon?
The last time we saw this from Apperman, he got solo killed by Cog a good 4 times.
Wasn't that Gnar into cannon again?
That's why I said, the last time we saw this matchup, it was him getting solo killed 4 times by Cog. It is... What? Okay, so what... Okay. Let me tell you why this is okay, I guess. Gnar is a 1-3-1 champion in a lot of ways. You can side lane. It allows LeBlanc to go into a side lane too. I think what you're wanting to do is to shift LeBlanc into a side lane against the Kennen, so the Kennen is a threat from Pyrion. We know that Pyrion loves to play that teleport. LeBlanc play the side lanes. And then Apperman gets to hit the turrets on another side, and then try and get onto the back line and just wallop and gnar the Ashe and Zoe into walls and hopefully hold them accountable. This is a quite hard to execute upon draft, though, from Sengoku, and whereas the Hawks... I'm liking their comp a fair bit here. It does have the hallmarks of putting Apperman into an uncomfortable situation and then trying to out-team fight Sengoku when they're not so confident with their draft.
Yeah, I also will point out that this is not the best 2v2 top for Sengoku Gaming.
No
not the best CC available for this Nidalee, and that means that maybe she's going to have to look around bot instead, where there is a glut of CC that is just so much easier access than Nidalee to get involved. But we know that Nidalee likes to play around top. If you're playing around 2v2s, you can get CC'd mid-dive and die because you're just damn squishy.
Yeah, but one of my problems here, though, is that if you're going to play around bot, that opens up the play of a cannon teleport play. And
Oh, yeah.
also, if you're going to go into team fights, who can realistically disengage this cannon?
You've got to
No
hope
one.
not. You've got to use your Nautilus dredge line to be peel rather than engage, I guess.
He's still going to... Oh, yes, pull the ulting cannon further into your team.
I suppose you've got to stand
No,
in. You've
that's
got to
the
stand in front of that. But that's kind of it, right? It's not great.
It's the worst of a bad situation. On the other side, this Zoe potentially can be picked off. I think LeBlanc is a good matchup into that in a lot of ways. Imperium has played this matchup very well in the past. However, Dasher, we've been talked about him being a very strong laner thus far in this split, and then of course Nidalee being able to follow up on that. Getting to see some stats on screen now, and looking at these early game stats, of course the Hawks have had a rough split. They've managed to turn it around. This is a turning point for them with their new coaching staff coming in. And this is one of the few times where there's been such an instant improvement from them. Admittedly, those 2 weeks off may have helped as well. That you can actually attribute some of their success to that coaching staff change. I know we've wanted that for a little while. And maybe we can then extrapolate to say maybe these stats are not indicative of this matchup.
And you can sort of see there's a bit of a discrepancy here between kills and assists at 15, despite the massive golden XP gains that Sengoku get. Again, we just said Sengoku, we don't necessarily have to look for a fight because they just win through lane. They're also a big Rift Herald team, and plate are good gold too. That's been something.
Gold 2, that's a very low rank.
It is very low rank. It's almost it's worse than Diamond 2, which is we know is a worrying trend.
Yes.
So. Sengoku Gaming without that worrying trend in their stats, that's for certain.
No, they don't have that indeed. Pepe hands.
Balls is allegedly still in Challenger on a secret account. So Diamond 2, not anymore.
That's the thing, right? I think that the constant grind of being in a pro team for so long doesn't work for everyone. There are some players it absolutely does for. Bjorksen being the guy which I immediately think of. This guy's practice regimen is absolutely insane. And a lot of the Korean pros end up keeping up that regimen because the mindset which a lot of Korean players go into it is that, okay, if I'm going to treat this as a profession, if I was going to be a businessman anyway and I'd be working 9 to 5 all this time, well, not going to be 9 to 5 because it's the overtime or whatever, you spend that same amount of time on gaming and you do that for however many years you do in your working life anyway, and you lead to this kind of career, which does lead to a lot of longer term pros and stuff like that. Of course, Barrett Blank and Parian, rather, not Blink and Parian.
What that sounds like a horrible
It sounds like an awful game of Pac-Man.
It's like you've got
it's
like the LGD video about when LGD decided they were going to win Worlds. They made a video where they faced off against Baker and his squad and finally beat them in the World Finals.
Wow! Oh god,
It's a great movie if you guys can find that ever. It's just beautiful stuff.
It's also wonderful Schadenfreude when season 5 SKT were the most dominant team ever. So
just slapped out JD. Yeah, that was great.
But speaking of those SKT players again, I mean Blank and Piran, they are the long-lived bunch. They've been around for a while now, and it's not like Afam and Yutomiyashi, and of course Tussle and Dowdemic have been around for a long tenure themselves.
And yeah, they have. Tussle in particular.
Yeah, and speaking of kind of like the everyday grind, can get them.
Everyday's not here anymore. He's casting the VCS now.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Well, not today. That's Fridays through Sundays.
That's right.
Yeah.
True that.
But putting your nose to the grindstone and kind of having yourself on that running track for such a long time, it can end up working in some really bad habits to your lifestyle and all this other stuff. And having that breath of fresh air somewhere throughout a split can really help you.
It is one way of finding that fresh country air that is so limited these days here in London.
Smells like cowpats and decaying leaves.
Oh, definitely smells like home. Alas, that's not the smell we've got right now. We've got the smell of battle in the air instead, as much as you can. That was an unexpected reference to the dark room. That was not where I was going with this, but yeah, that's here we are. Okay, you've seen these comps. I generally prefer the Hawks comp at this point. I think Afman's in a difficult spot.
It feels like
yes.
It feels like Sengoku have to win lane very hard for their comp to succeed because they want to take down first turrets on side lanes and then have Nara and LeBlanc playing the long lane, and then, as we've said so often, we said with the Camille last game, right? And of course that works for the Renekton in the last game too, that you have these extra angles into a fight, because if you fight front to back versus the Hawks team, pretty sure Sengoku lose like 8 out of 10 times. You have the Ash Arrow firing straight into the team. No one can tank an Ash Arrow. Like, I mean, if you had something like an Ornn or a Maokai on that top side, which I very much would have preferred over this Gnar.
Even the GP, which is for the zoning a cannon barrage to slow down the cannon coming in.
I think GP has its value versus the stationary backline of the Zoe and the Ash. That would have had its own value. Gnar can disrupt the backline, but it takes a lot more setup and a lot more forethought, and it's a lot easier to counterplay because you can see his ultimate timer on below his health bar. It's like the Shyvana ult. It's like you once that bar goes red, you don't want to be near him.
No, and that has been an element of pro play as long as Nara has been in the meta and out of meta. It's basically there is this conversation about how well do you play around the Nara bar from either side. Can you get your Nara into position if you're running it? Can the other team just force you into awkward teleports? We were watching the LCS last night, and Ruin's Nara was towards some of those really important late game team fights was just not at a point where the Nara bar could be used, and that proves devastating, disastrous when it comes to big objective fights. If you cannot find the right,
particularly when you're against someone like a cannon who just sees the green light and immediately goes.
Yeah.
You have yourself like Protobelt Flash. You have a spell book with something like there's something interesting on it too. That cannon can immediately screw up your team.
Think about some of the best performing top laners in the world right now. The Shy now on form with the Invectus Gaming, who beat Top Esports 2-0.
It's huge.
It's, obviously there wasn't. I don't think he had the Ken in that one, but part of this guy's return to form has been on the back of some unreal teleport flanks. Look at Nuguri over with Damwon Gaming. Him and Showmaker have been running over the LCK to an extent. Nuguri's Kennen is notoriously good. That ability to force really dangerous fights and flanks,
and also
like
being able to take a losing situation to a fight you take on your own terms is such a valuable skill as a pro player, because it's like suddenly getting everyone on the same page, very quickly rallying yourselves and saying, okay, we do have all these tools available to us, and let's try and make a play out of this. Dasher is actually going to lose a melee minion there, because we saw, as we were filling on screen there, Spear landed onto him, wanted to recall, popped his potion, but then the distort forward from Empyrean into an auto attack, stopped his recall, meant that he'd either have to start lane with one less corrupting potion charge and a little bit less HP and mana, or go late slightly to lane. 2-2, hook misses.
Flame misses too. That was really sad. Okay.
Chris, the yellow star lane!
Alright, so a couple of things there as well. You saw the Twitter vote, 77% favour of Sengoku Gaming. The AI vote, 54%, I believe, in favour of the Hawks just off this draft phase. Here's some blank stats for Nidalee in 2027.
By the way. That DPM is absolutely huge.
That's really, really huge. It's KDA of 32, massive CS per minute from the jungle. That's 91% kill participation as well.
That's blanks. Oh gosh, that is
remarkable, actually.
Considering how most junglers don't play carry junglers as much. I mean, a lot of them, not as much as blank anyway. A lot of people have indexed into stuff like Trundle, Lee Sin. This guy having those kind of stats on a champion, which is quite hard to execute on. Nidalee normally, well, you need to hit spears. Your team comp does help with that if you have a lot of instant CC. But
I know it's generally said amongst junglers that Nidalee is the hardest champion to execute in the jungle, period.
Yeah, no, that does not surprise me at all. I think that's actually relatively... I mean, she's an entirely mobility skill shot based champion with no tank stats and questionable utility even after you get that Athenes. You are very predicated on some very niche scenarios at some points, but having the ability to power farm and having the potential to have these hugely damaging or mobile trades is an X factor which a lot of pro teams still love to play around, and of course Blank loves to play around that too.
You've got range, you've got dive, you've got damage, you've got healing, you've got scouting with the spears as well, which is...
Whoa, is this on jungle?
Right, but those are the things, but the thing is the weaknesses come as well, that you just have to have good hands to be able to play that champion. You have to also have a team that's willing to play around you. You also have to hope that even if you get fed, you don't find yourself caught up by one bit of CC, because you never get tanky. The Rod of Ages helps, but that takes gold, that takes time, and even then, you're not exactly a tank.
And if you ever fall behind as Nidalee, things do not go very well. I find actually getting stunned, not quite under turret, luckily.
As well.
Yeah, it's alright. Treading okay on the top side. Getting the early priority means that Blank has the opportunity to push up, take that scuttle on the top side, put a couple of wards down as well.
Is that the Christmas skin for Gnar?
No, that's Astronaut.
Oh, it's Astronaut. I've just not seen it in game yet.
I don't think Gnar has a Christmas skin. He has a Winter Wonder.
He has a Winter Wonder, okay.
It's not technically the same.
No, it's not.
Whereas Graves is the one, at least he's like got a candy cane instead of a cigar.
Yes, that's true. They've got rid of the cigar finally, because I know there was complaints about it gone, and now they've basically had it as a law thing that he just quit smoking.
Aw, that's actually kind of cool. Good
Yeah.
for you. Save your lungs, dude.
Yeah, because it's sort of like if you go listen to the Legends of Runeterra stuff, Misfortune and T have a couple conversations. Like, how's the partner? Quit smoking. Is
Aw.
the phrase. So there you go. Lore development, character development. Yone is alive.
Ari and Yasuo.
Ari and Yasuo is being
I'm
shipped.
telling you,
Are you okay? But
No,
I've yet to
So,
apologize for you. Doing okay, knowing that that's happening. in the background.
I've chosen to take this as the silver lining of now that Ari is connected to the most popular champion in the game. I'm gonna get more Ari content. Woo!
Oh man.
Shame for all you.
Shame
Taliyah
upon
fans.
my family.
Yeah,
is what it is.
we are literally we are the Yasuo Yone of casting.
We are. That's
Which
actually.
one?
I'm the older brother that's just like disappointed.
So you're Yone.
I am.
I'm
Yone.
Yasuo. I'm the person who goes 0-10 in your team.
You just wind wall any comments I make as I try to scream about why have you not done this? Like if you don't clean up that milk wizard one more time, man.
Hang on now. I sometimes am under some very stressful conditions as a caster where I'm like, oh, what pun am I going to make next?
Remind me who's been casting for 5 days and had to do the super week. Like,
like, woe is you. Getting to shout at video games.
I know,
probably.
it's awful. It's awful. This is an insight into how we are off cast. Just
it's a little bit.
there's laughter here, but there's going to be a certain amount of like it's going to be like guns at noon if we finish.
Is it past noon? Oh, so it's 15 minutes. 15
Yeah,
minutes we have guns.
15 minutes. Yeah, we're gonna pause the cast so we can shoot each other.
Yep.
Yeah. No way to resolve
It's like
this.
you've heard of Death of a Salesman, now it's Death of a Caster.
Death of a caster.
Death of the Leandri Salesman.
The problem is that salesman was like selling crap in that particular play. Like,
You know what? I don't even know. I don't even know the play.
Look,
I wasn't going to out myself as someone who's uncultured, but yeah.
mate, you did it to a man who's a lit student and a journalist for his like actual day-to-day work.
Yep.
Like, that was always going to be a mistake.
Oh, much like it was a mistake picking this Gnar.
Hey, what a segue back into the game.
I do genuinely think this Gnar is such a burden of execution, and Sengoku have not succeeded through playing hard-to-play comps. They've played, honestly, very cookie-cutter comps, even when they were winning back in spring, playing like the Varus Victor. And the Varus has been one of those champions which is hard to execute upon, so maybe I will kind of caveat that. But Sengoku were very well practiced with a certain kind of composition, and it wasn't this kind of comp. I am a little worried about them coming into this, and they're not exactly winning out in the CS department like they normally do in a lot of these games. They've got a little bit of a lead in the bot lane. It's not leading to any kind of gold advantage. The early Cloud Dragon is nice, though.
That is nice, and that's exactly what I call it. The gold lead is 100 gold in favour of Sengoku Gaming, which is not what we expect out of lane from these guys, generally speaking, and sometimes forces issues later on. Blank is going to come down bot, potentially look for something, but he's going to be on vision, and that will alert the bot lane of Hawks that something more is coming. And you're right, the one advantage that Sengoku Gaming did get while we were kind of joking around a little bit was they did pick up the Cloud, which is good news. But the Nidalee's not coming out to an early farm lead because Volibear is just hard farming as well.
And the next dragon, I'd love to see what kind of flavor that is, actually. We'll get to see it on screen at some point. But speaking of that Cloud Dragon, we've got some time to talk about it. As I say quite often on cast, LeBlanc is probably up there with the top 3 champions for Cloud Dragons. As if I think about people who really want that base ultimate cooldown, a lot of the times people who use their ultimate on cooldown. For me, that is people like Zillion Echo, who use it defensively and use it to enable their very harsh trades, and then also LeBlanc, who uses it for those poke assassination trades pretty much on cooldown.
I would imagine Zoe's not a bad call on that as well, with the portal.
She's okay.
Just cooldown for it was always really
She's
nice,
more about
but
her sleep cooldown, though, rather than
really true,
her
yeah.
ult cooldown, although
the poke later on does come in pretty strong.
It can very much help for Cassidy too. Cassidy, because they're having those, Aramek's got ult. Oh, wait, no, we need to stop filling. There's going to be a big fight.
Yeah, there may well be, but that's a good ward to spot out the Hawks, but they are going to come and contest. Sengoku Gaming, we know you love these heralds. You're going to look for a fight. The sleep misses period in the backline. No idea who picks up that particular. Well, Aramek misses everything, but that's because it was a great flash out from Enti to prevent anything. Now Enti's actually in a horrible position, though, so maybe not so good. The sleep lands, and the Nautilus is dead to Rights. First blood to Dash, who throws out.
Well, the Ash ult.
The Ash ult lands as well. The DFM emote came out, and Aramek picks up a second. At least Purian secures the Rift Herald Eye, but 2 kills for a Herald that might not earn you anything sounds a little rough.
At least Sengoku are keeping up their stats for the most Herald percentage in the league. They picked that up, but Afman did not flash the Ashel. It comes up a little too quickly, and Afman does not respect the ability to re-engage. A quick follow-up flash hook from Pooh ends up sealing his fate as well. So let's go back to the replay. Dasher looking to poke out Blank, and he is stuck in the pit. Pyrion with a good trade on the back end of that ends up locking Dasher in place, which means that he's not necessarily there to follow up onto this potential engage from Eric. He doesn't commit the flash, and it's a good kind of triple dodge away from Afman, Yutorimashi, and NC to make sure that there is no AoE available to the cannon, but it doesn't stop NC going down. He tries to hop away, but it's honestly, dude, you just gotta flash that. You don't hold onto your mobility there. It ends up being your second kill of the fight going to the Hawks. So Dasher and crew coming out to an early lead here, even though they did drop down that Herald.
They lost the Herald, but got the 2 kills, and it's on to some good people. 1-0-1 for your Kennen and your Zoe. Sounds like a great start to a game to me. Honey and Pooh evening up the CS in the bot side. It's even in top. It's a little bit of a lead for Pyrion in the mid lane, but nothing to write home about. And Hawks have themselves a 500-600 gold lead. Whereas Sengoku Gaming have got a Herald in inventory and the Dragon to their name, but they need to find a way to use that Herald, especially when it's on Pyrion. It's not on the jungle. It's harder to find the chance to use it as easily.
Oh, for sure. And we were talking about how Vandali is the hardest to execute upon jungler in the game. And we saw that Blank is at least farming very well. But fight quickly in the bot side, and that's going to be the not all committed.
And it's the Ash Arrow in the back, but there is a good Lantern and the Flay away. That's a good return. Dredge line to prevent the hook from being as effective as it could be. Curtain Call comes out, but there's not much of applause to be found, and the audience stays on their feet.
They do. Standing ovation for the missed skill shots, unfortunately. Pooh playing blocker for that. However, without the Ash ult now available, it looks like Sengoku will get themselves this second dragon of the game, setting up once again very well around that. We talked about how Sengoku love to play around the early dragons and get themselves to one of those more important souls, and it will be the most important soul on the Rift. It will be the Ocean Soul. After picking up the Mountain Dragon, giving themselves some increased defensive stats, this is looking okay in terms of the objectives, at least, for Sengoku.
Ocean Soul has by far the highest win rate of any soul that you can acquire in League of Legends. That's solo queue and pro play quite equally, and it's pretty damn good.
It is. I mean, particularly with something like the Nara as well, who does want to take some slightly more elongated trades later in the game because you're not particularly the highest burst champion ever. It does mean that the Ocean Soul will be working well in their favor. Of course, with the Nidalee and the LeBlanc being able to escape a lot of situations due with their mobility, gives you that extra time to do stuff. Afterman curring with the ult.
He has got himself the Nara into the wall. Aramik taken pretty low, but is now going to return with the slicing Maelstrom. Mini-Nar has come out, gets stunned in place, but Aramik is going to get chased down now. The boomerang's coming out. Blank looking to come over the back here and potentially finish off the Nar, but Tussle will be around. The Volley Bear versus the Nidalee will be a continuing trend in this game, but it will ward off the dive. Dasher roaming up, but Pyrion is coming too. Remember, he's got the Herald in inventory. We know how Sengoku Gaming like to play around topside. There is no slicing Maelstrom. There is still a Stormbringer, and Sengoku getting back away, but now Dasher is here. Pooh has roamed up. The sleep lands. That is a flash. There was no distortion available, and Pyrion takes half his HP, but no more could be found because Tussle didn't want to commit the flash or go super hard over the wall to get in there.
Okay, so a little bit of hyphy there, but what that was Pyrion flashing away from maybe a hook following in from Pooh. He roams up early, gets there, and honestly, the story of Super Week in terms of the top lane players has been supports roaming to avert dives or trying to stave off the worst case scenario. And it's going to be one of the middling scenarios, all things said and done. 2 plates, but no kills going to the side of Sengoku. Goal to the solo laners, and also blank from Sengoku.
We've seen Reiner do it, we've seen Gang do it, we see Pooh do it here as well. Threshers and sets in particular feel like, well, Norton as well, not bad at it, just roam so damn well.
It does, but Pooh having a decent game so far. And
we've
had questions about this guy as a support at different times. That's a wave clear ult coming out from Atman. Also worth noting from the Gnar pick, another sleep lands, that's going to be a decent chunk of HP gone, as we say.
Yep.
But the Gnar's level 1E, when you hop, you get increased attack speed. That's always been the case, but now it's gone from 20% up to 40%, which means that your attack speed for the grand majority of the game is going to be a base increase of 20% whenever you use that hop. I mean, that's maybe one of the reasons why Atman is going back towards that pick. It's fallen off in the top lane. It's just a little too hard to execute on in the same way that Nidalee is, but you don't have that same base value of being able to farm quicker than pretty much any champion in the game in your role. And yeah, going back to that pick, it's very kind of a little weird. I didn't expect it to be coming out, but I guess with the champion pool hit so hard this game, it's seen the position to get it.
Yeah, I still worry about Sengoku Gaming come front-to-back team fights. They've got Engage, I guess, in the form of the Nautilus, which is nothing bad, and the Deadly Flourish is good follow-up, but frontline is conditional for Sengoku Gaming on the whole outside of the Nautilus, and I just think the Hawks just have an easier to execute team fight options.
Need to. One thing which I will start highlighting, because the Observer highlights it as well, is that, of course, we only got 2 minutes until that next dragon, but the vision control is not in favor of Sengoku. And we talked about how Sengoku were, of course,
Massive war destroyed rate.
Yeah, they have a massive war destruction rate, and they use that to secure themselves stuff like Heralds and Dragons. The second Herald is now live. I think they're waiting for a potential commit from the Hawks, see if they can get a pick on the way to that objective, whereas Apperman is just going to take down that top lane outer turret, as the first turret in the game does go the way of Sengoku.
That will even up the gold. They're now up in a 100 gold lead, but at this point in the game means very, very little. Dasher on the opposite side of the lane, kind of aware that Sengoku Gaming are in the darkness on the top side of the map, but that is a lantern and the curtain call gets nothing. But that will still be the Herald startup for Sengoku.
Okay, so first off, well played by Pooh being in place of the lantern. That's one of the best things about Thresh players. Dash are going to be able to wave clear that mid lane, but the second thing is that we talked about the vision control going the way of the Hawks. The reason that curtain call looked so pants is because they didn't know where Pooh was. It's a little bit of that working with the lack of information, trying to connect the dots. They unfortunately connect the wrong dots, and they end up, instead of having like a picture of a dog, have a pizza. And yeah,
nice analogy.
I was thinking, one thing becomes
pizza delivery Sivir out there.
It's pizza time. It does mean though that's a wasted ult from Jin. I guess he didn't have many opportunities to use it. Well, of course that's actually completely untrue because there's a dragon in 20 seconds. That is an ultimate they no longer have available.
They do have a Herald, though, and that can buy priority in mid. We've seen it used so many times to contest for this third Drake. It is dropped. It is going to be Sengoku Gaming moving over now into this river area, but the wards are up for Hawks, and Sengoku Gaming haven't been here in time to clear them out. They're going to start. Okay, but that will be the turret in mid down. That's 2 for Sengoku Gaming, and now the Hawks have to try and find their way into this river again, with Sengoku Gaming having claimed control.
Have done. So Adamix pushing up on the top side, has teleport, has flash, has plenty of flank wards. Pyrion looking to play goalkeeper for his team, but this is the big play. This could turn the game.
Pyrion's got a flank, but Enti's been exhausted. He's so damn squishy. He doesn't get the aftershock off. Now Aramix over by the dragon. He doesn't find anything. Pooh does claim the kill onto his opposing support. Dasher claims the Drake, and Pyrion got stunned by the arrow and goes down to Aramix. Now Apperman comes in with a big Gnar, but goes golden does Dasher, and now the Apperman falls. The Gnar goes down because he went in. 5-0 is the kill score for Hawks. They pick up the third Drake, and they'll look to continue shoving on in this mid lane.
So the Hawks may have lost most of the early game objectives, but they managed to pick up that fight. They picked up every kill in this game so far, and they will start to take down this mid lane outer turret as a follow-on from that big play. Adamic ends up joining the team fight. He has his ultimate on one point-and-click button, whereas this Gnar starts this fight with basically no rage. The teleport comes in, and Appan is not ready to go mega just quite yet, and NC is too far away from his team. He has himself a stopwatch, but he ends up popping it when he's only on 100 HP, goes down for free, and he's out of the fight immediately. Pyrion goes in for a distort, but then gets hit by an Ash arrow right off the back of it, had no flash, had no hope, and the rest of his team was already backing off. Potentially, if Apman's there to follow up on the engage, things go a little differently, but this is when we're talking about how hard these teams to execute. It's about being on the same page at the same time, and Sengoku plainly weren't.
Pyrion goes to double distort. That means there's no distortions left to escape from the arrow, especially with the exhaust on to make dodging a significantly trickier business. Dasher, though, now potentially in a bit of trouble, but there's the Lantern. Pooh, once again, in excellent position to save the mid laner.
Uses the Nimbus Cloak as well with that spellbook, or I'm not sure if that was a spell thief. It was either a spellbook or a spell thief.
Spell thief, I believe.
Okay, it's something like that. Anyway, just sets Pyrion on fire and runs away. That's hooray! Wonderful.
That's kind of horrifying, really, isn't it?
Oh, what fun!
This small child that laughs and has beautiful, cute themes just sets people on fire and runs away. It's like, you monster. Who does that?
Zoe is New Age Teemo. Prove me wrong.
I mean, was Teemo ever really this awful?
I
don't know, like Omega Squad Teemo is a dark thing.
It is the dark thing. It's like Spirit Blossom Teemo in its own way, just like randomly pranking everyone under the sun for no reason.
But the pranks are like, yeah, but I've murdered you. Oh, what a funny prank.
And that is why Zoe is the New Age Teemo.
the Loki of League of Legends. Quite literally, in fact. That's kind of her aspect as one of those Targonian deities.
Oh, you mean like just the Eldar Southlands and the...
Yeah. It's basically... Well, I mean, isn't Gav Thorpe one of their writers?
Yes.
So it's an ex-40k
I'm
writer who's writing
I said this
lore.
as soon as Pantheon was reworked. I'm like, I guess 40k is now in League of Legends. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, go look up Eldar from 40k. You'll see what I mean.
Yep.
They
bring in a 40k writer. They have, I think he wrote one of the Eldar rulebooks.
Yes,
possibly.
he did.
So there you go. So it's all there. You're right from experience, and Gav Thorpe has written it in for the.
Not that I mind. I was an Eldar player. I don't mind that all too much, but still, you know.
There you go.
I love my
Wheels within
space
wheels.
elves.
This is not 40k though. This is fantasy. It's Summoner's Rift. Even if summoners are no longer a thing, and instead we have dark gods and aspect deities, Pyrian and Tussle play around the blast plant for a moment.
Appleman
has teleported in. He's got no Narbar.
He's used the webway!
Oh, the webway. Well, Blank will claim the kill. The webway comes up with a nice flag for Appleman, and that's Sengoku Gaming finally on the board. This is some
20-minute
lore.
20-minute Baron.
20-minute Garrett Baron for Sengoku Gaming looking to punish. It's just the support dead, but remember, Aramik hasn't got teleport, can't be here all that easily. The teleport now coming in from Dash, who's back in base. Going to get this Baron down to half HP. They are actually pretty tanky versus the Baron.
They will have Meganar. They'll have Meganar, and Appleman on the Nard does have... Oh, it's some good ring.
Dash is being caught, but he goes golden, and now Pyrian gets stunned as well. Aramik is going to be here. He's got a slicing maelstrom to end all days. That's going to be someone into the backline, but people running away. Blank now has to escape, but gets flashed on and gets shut down. Or rather, not shut down, just murdered. But either way, it will be 3 people dead, and the Baron bait... just baits Sengoku Gaming into an awful fight around that Baron pit.
I was about to say, Jin is not a good Baron taking AD carry. They're going to teleport in Pyrian to see if this is the end of the contest. They do have cultivate.
Oh, there is the curtain call. Pyrian going to try and get his way out, but the 4th shot is all that's left. Yutorimashi has nothing more in the tank from that range apart from the occasional deadly flourish, and the Baron continues. Pyrian needs to find something. He steps forward, gets a Ranger's focus slow on top of him, and Pyrian and Dasher goes in. They secure the Baron. Now they need to escape. The chains will land, and Dasher will surely fall. But no, the health bar is just enough, and the Proto Belt claims the life of Pyrian again. 0-2 and 0 in this game. 9-1 is the kill score. 38,000 gold to 32.5. So the Hawks are running over this mid game, and it's all kind of fall apart around this Baron pit play. Take me through it, Nightmare.
This is a 5v4. Sengoku try and force the issue. They think if they can start hitting the objective, Appleman can finally be in Neganar. But it doesn't end up stunning Honey against the wall. It just gets him into a better position to return fire. And of course, there was a wonderful stopwatch to end up disengaging from that too. And as soon as the Gnar is out, there's no more disruption left. The Cannon ult is there to stop LeBlanc diving in. It ends up being 4 kills and a Baron going on the side of the Hawks. Firmly controlled this game. Sengoku have seeded the early game, seeded the mid game, seeded the final objective, which might be the straw, which breaks the camel's back.
That's a run of ages on Nidalee, but it's 22 minutes in and there's no stacks on it. That's the kind of space this game is in. Dasher flashing with that picked up Spell Thief flash to put NT to 1/3 HP. Aramik will shove in the top side, and that's supposed to be your frontline, Sengoku Gaming.
No, that's the rear guard. I think you'll find it's the one which is trying to buy time for the rest of his team to survive while he dies heroically or less than heroically.
It's the feeling a little bit like someone stepping out into the cold in the Arctic saying, I'm going for a walk, I may be some time.
Oh, no.
The time being the chance to respawn before he comes back onto the rift. Did escape that time for 0-3 and 0. You can see how this Nautilus is playing in the back end of this. Been a little rough. Black Cleaver and Hex Drinker is in for Appleman. Kind of it. Split push build.
Can I just say, I love the Shurelias coming out of Poo because the ways to disengage from Sengoku are quite limited. They literally are waiting for a Nautilus ult to come through or just a huge Meganar. And what this means is that the Ashe can run forward, the Kennen can run forward. It's an extra bit of mobility for that.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be scarier than it was going to be.
I actually thought that was going to be worse, but then the Merc Treads have come out. I was going to hit on that earlier. Infinity Edge, the highest damage output, but not going for the Swifties, means that Yutorimashi is kind of at the mercy of the Hawks come into a lot of these team fights. Because if you are hit by the CC, you're probably already dead. It opens up with a curtain call, but this is Last Chance Saloon.
And this might just be the encore for the Hawks. Never mind a bow for Sengoku Gaming. They step on the stage, and there's no one there to receive it. Hawks disengage. There's a few low health bars, and they're going to feel a little bit nervous about pushing in. Sengoku Gaming do manage to save the base, but this was a very early Baron, and it will just be a significant gold lead out of the Hawks here. 3.5k with 10 minutes left, or 10 seconds rather left on that Baron buff push.
So at least the Baron buff is going to dissipate after the next couple of seconds, as you were saying, and the Sengoku are now basically waiting for a Ocean Dragon steal. That's effectively their only win condition. If Blank
it is a good win condition in fairness.
It is, however, I think that if Blank dies for that steal, the game might just end. I don't think Sengoku have the best wave clear in the game. Of course they don't. The Jin doesn't really have a lot in his own way, and LeBlanc would have to dive into melee range. And if he dives into a Kennen who has stood there on the mini wave with flash and ult, he flashes back to the store, and then Pyrion dies. And if Pyrion dies, then that's the game over.
Pyrion doesn't have that Banshee spell actually yet either, so him diving forwards for his wave clear is pretty risky right now.
The thing for me now is that, so yesterday on our cast, I was quite critical of Axes and them having quite a solid win condition and not playing it out well. And flubbing a lot of the game-changing conditions, even when it seemed like they had the path set out in front of them. Sengoku are not in that same position. It's more the Hawks, which I'm now looking at, saying, look, you are in the lead this game and you have a way to seal this out. Do you have the style and the class and the form right now to finish out this game when it is on that 91% chance to win on even the AI bot?
91 problems, but a win condition ain't one. The Hawks know how they want to play this game out. It's working super well. Sengoku Gaming on the other side, we had issues with their draft. It is playing out in game. They didn't manage to get the leads they needed to early, and they just... it's devolving into 5v5s, and Sengoku Gaming don't really have the best comp for that. It's an awkward one for it. Period's going to go forward and try and find something, but the chain missing is big. The speed up from Dasher means the Deadly Flourish doesn't land either, and instead, the Paddle Star comes out to add insult to injury. Dasher's still dashing around, and that Zoe is... very swift, you're exactly right.
Things we need to watch out for now. It is a minute until Ocean Dragon, so this is the time to get yourself some picks. Try and get people off the back to base, meaning that you can get priority and vision over the next objective. We can see that the poke from Pyrion is not nearly as impactful as the poke from Dasher, and however, it does look like the Hawks will also get themselves that midline priority for now. And Aramik is similarly pushed up top lane, doesn't have his teleport just yet. I think he just used himself a summon a spellbook spell to get that teleport back available, and Dasher is now back up on the map as well with 30 seconds to Ocean Dragon. Any chunk from Dasher now will mean a lot.
Mercury Treads have been in across the board for Sengoku Gaming actually as well, just trying to deal with the massive amount of poke that's coming out of them. They know they don't have much frontline, so they just need to survive as well as they can against the onslaught that Dasher and Aramik could put out against them. Honey does take a bit of a chunk there from an Elise Bit, but now NT's in trouble. He's got no tagginess. Aramik gets onto Pyrion in the backside, who gets over the wall. He has to go golden, does this Kennen, and now maybe they can find something. Pyrion's clone goes down, but he survives for now. The Raptors are starting to chunk him out though, and he's got to go back. He's got teleport. Apperman now taken very low. Does have the Gnar bar coming up, though. He will have Mega Gnar for this Ocean Soul, but Hawks now starting this. That curtain call does not stop the recall. And now Pyrion coming back in, blank into the back of the pit. He can still steal this. He can still get that Ocean Soul. The Hawks don't know he's there. They need to be so afraid of that Nidalee. If she steals it, that's the win condition, maybe for Sengoku Gaming. I don't think it necessarily secures anything.
No, he's trying to spear.
He misses the spear, but he's in the back end. He's got to try and secure the fight, but it does go down the way of Volibear. Hawks, that wasn't particularly clean as far as a dragon setup, but you will win the ensuing fight. Tussle flashes over the wall and swipes down the Panther, and they will get another couple kills at the back end because Pyrion and Yutori Miyashi fell. There is no wave clear. They don't even care about the Baron. They're going to go in and break the base. Hell, they might even think to look for more with 30 seconds on a number of the carries still remaining before they respawn.
Afferman's alive, but importantly, the Jin is not. He is the one person that can potentially win a team fight for the side of Sengoku. They're going to take themselves a minute inhib and back off for that Baron. Potentially look to death push this game in the next few minutes.
Yeah, don't feel they want to take another 5v5 in the base with the respawn's going to be coming through, but the inhibitor is still secured.
And I also just want to say, that was another 4-0. There has not been a single kill outside of that one pick, which led to Sengoku trying to start that Baron earlier. That's been it. They've been completely shut out of this game.
And while Jin is a fairly mediocre to bad Baron taker, Ash with Blade of the Ruin King is certainly not. That Baron is gone. There is no chance for Sengoku Gaming to even think about contesting. Pyrion is going to try and stop some backs, maybe find something, but he takes more damage going in for a chain than he does putting it out. Now Dasher looks to turn it around. That's a hook onto Enti. He hasn't only just got his afterhook, he's got his GA pop, but he's not using it very well. Blank gets one of the backline. That's great news. Now Apperman in the backside as well, but he's getting stunned up and goes down. The Ash falls too, though. This is a fight for Sengoku Gaming. The retreat wasn't swift enough from the Hawks, and they were a little bit casual in the retreat, and Sengoku Gaming find a breath of life at the end here. The curtain call coming through, and Hawks are being corralled under their turret. There is not a slicing maelstrom quite yet. It's going to come around. Aramik gets Pyrion, forces a flash out. The deadly flourish misses, and now Pyrion is in a bit of a difficult spot, and Dasha claims the life. It is a 2-4-3 in favor of Sengoku Gaming, but it wasn't clean, but the Hawks still get up with a Baron, even if they've wasted some time and some gold there.
And Sengoku quadruple their kill score from 1 to 4. They try and pick the fight after the Baron is taken, trying to deny some of those Baron resets. We've heard and talked about so much about the Baron being important, yes, but the resets which come afterwards and what you can actually gain from your push being more important. With 3 of those Baron buffs now off the board, the Hawks will not have that same level of Baron power play that they had with the first one. However, Sengoku losing Pyrion on the back end of that is still nullifies a lot of what they would want it to done in the next couple of minutes as well. So the Hawks still very firmly in the ascendance.
That's the one. Close to as good as it could have gone, I think is what phrase of Sengoku Gaming. I took a moment there to see whether I actually agree with that statement. I think, actually, no, still think that's probably the way it was with how the fights are going. Tassa's going to go in. He's got a lot of speed to him with that righteous glory, but the Gnar will come in to disengage. Apperman's Gnar will run out, though, in this bot lane will be under siege very shortly, and he manages to get his way out. But now Honey firing at this grunt, firing at this wave. The blue buff goes away from Sengoku Gaming. Not as big a deal this late into the game, but that's a sleep on to Gnar. They're going to continue to shove forward. And Treads and Hextrin could be damned. That is the Void Staff in for Dasher, and the poke is landing significantly more heavily now.
And at this point in the game, Sengoku playing base defense once more. Just going to be the single lane push from the side of the Hawks.
Got a hold of 30 seconds.
But they got to hold on for another half minute. Pyrion takes another chunk of his HP and will have to return to base. That's another auto landing. The sleep plan.
Oh my days. Pyrion's clone buys time. Apperman now getting exhausted on the side. Does have that Mega Gnar going up, but that is the Mega Gnar, the Asho coming out. The cleanse from Utroy actually does get him away. The curtain call now in response. But the mid lane inhibitor, or rather bot lane inhibitor, has fallen along with the tower. And Hawks look to retreat. Apperman now here with an Arbar just for a few seconds more. He's got flash. He's going to look to get in, but Dasher escapes with a flash of his own. Pyrion taken so low as Honey steps forward, knowing the cooldowns are low. Aramik going forwards with the slicing maelstrom, gets Enti at the back end of it, and Nidalee has just escaped with her life, but no health bar is onto the fountain. Will have to heal up. The Nexus Tower is now under siege. Sengoku coming in a 4v5. Need to try and find a way back in. Need to find some kills. They can't do it for now. Pyrion now chunked out. Every time he dashes in, he gets chunked out. There's no Banshee's Spell. No hope. There is the double distortion. It means nothing at all. The hook onto Apperman before the Mega Gnar comes out, and that yordle of the prehistoric age, and Sengoku Gaming will be sent to the grave alongside the Gnar.
Will do, and Sengoku drop their second game of Super Week. I know that Lexi was talking about this team would be expected to go at least 3-1. They're going to be sat there at 2-2, all things said and done. But to collate our thoughts on the issue, we'll be right back.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to the LJL Officially Unofficial, bringing you coverage of the LJL 2020 Summer Split Week 6. Gentlemen, we just saw Sengoku Gaming face off against the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks Gaming, but the Hawks reign supreme, pushing themselves further along, and maybe they can be the team that will go 3-1, as Sengoku's chances of that are now gone. Perished. Decided. They have gone 2-2 in Super Week. Not a terrible score, but not a score you expect from a top team, right, lads?
Given that they were tied second, aiming for first, this is a terrible result in my eyes. This is the thing, right? If I'm going to be disappointed, Dad, for DFM yesterday, oh my gosh, Sengoku, you have to.
Do you even want to be the dad here? Do you want to be just the uncle that's like in the back room, like
I'm like the school counselor. Like I'm like, look, I know that your studies have been really difficult now, Sengoku, but that doesn't mean that you get to skip out on your homework. Look, it's there for a reason. You're there trying to learn some stuff, and you're honestly not connecting with it very well. And this game just seemed like them just throwing their notebook out the window and just whatever happened, happened.
Well, I've got to put it in here as well. Like, the analogy goes further, right? Because it's the problems are starting at home. That game was draft difference. Like, that was tough. That was tough stuff in the champ select.
Alright, let's talk about one of my most favourite things to talk about and this pick and ban phase. And, well, I was talking in the production notes like, well, this is going to be fun. And then they lock it in, I'm like, okay, cool. So, we can talk about a bunch of it, but I think the biggest glaring problem on the side of Sengoku was that last pick. Really.
Yep.
And
if you look...
Yeah.
If you lock in, so they locked in the Gnar, and then you look at this composition. What is Gnar's role in this composition? Because you lose the 1v1 versus Cannon. We have seen that multiple times. Cannon really deals well with Gnar in the side lane. Gnar is really hard to execute in team fights. Cannon's really easy to execute in team fights. Why don't you just pick a Maokai or an Ornn? They can at least try and disengage that Cannon. If you dive in with the Cannon, you have an Ornn ult or you have a Maokai ult, that suddenly means the team fight is in your favor. And if Sengoku were going to go towards that anyway, because they were looking towards the later game dragon fights to try and win themselves the game, just pick yourself someone which indexes into that. The Gnar is far too hard to execute in this comp. It doesn't have a clear role. It didn't have a clear KDA. It had 0 kills.
I've got to chime in on the build as well, right? Couple ways you build Gnar. You build him for split push with the Black Cleaver Blade of the Ring.
He does that in any situation now. He can't really go tank.
But exactly. But I mean, the old school build for Gnar is like, well, maybe you can pick up some tank items and be a frontline. You couldn't do that either. And
you can't do that on current Gnar. It's so bad. Yeah.
Okay. So like, he doesn't even have that option anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And regardless, Ornn is the highest presence in the major regions at 61%, and yet it went through this pick and ban phase and wasn't picked, and arguably it solves a fair few problems in Sengoku's draft. They needed some designated initiation that isn't reliant on NT basically landing a god ultimate, or outside of Yutorimashi landing like 2 crazy curtain calls where it slows them, they can dive in. Guess who's really good at diving in when a curtain call's been done? Ornn! Or a Maokai. Like, multiple champions...
even Sion would be really good this game. Anything like those. Pick a super tank.
Yorick would have been okay. Malphite!
Okay. Malphite would have been very good.
Yeah. So just to pull this back a little bit to a broader picture, Appamen took a break for a while back in 2018, possibly 19, I forget when it was.
Last year.
And when he came back, he had a champion pool issue.
Well,
he just didn't play as many champions.
But it wasn't as small as Paz's champion pool from last split.
No, that's true. But the rumors were from scrims, from various personalities that Appamen had champion pool issues. Coming into summer, we thought maybe he'd save them. The Hawks hard target Appamen. We've seen him play Ornn, and we're very underwhelmed by him playing it. He was missing very easy second casts on ultimates, for example, just not hitting the ram back. Maybe this is getting a little exposed here. Maybe this is people saying, yeah, you can ban Appamen out. Maybe this is just the one. It's only the one game, of course. Maybe he's got other things in there. But that does raise questions, and other teams are going to be looking at this with another week to go, and they can sort of see Sengoku Gaming with some flaws in them here.
Yeah, and it wasn't like there wasn't other champions on open to him. But let's move on into this game, as we've kind of already said. If we look at the draft purely, there's already a strong favourite. Absolutely, it's podcast content. And there's also a strong favourite now from where we're coming into this game and how the narrative of this game really flowed, that it was in favour of the Hawks in a lot of different scenarios. The first one that I really want to hone in on is at the 9-minute mark, where we see Sengoku get that Rift Herald. But they lose 2 members of their team for that price. And there was a question on cast at that time, is that even worth it when you're losing this much gold through it, the priority, the experience, minions, farming and everything else? It's not just the tiny macro of that Rift Herald and the turret plating gold that you expect through it, it's so much more. And yeah, Nightmare, take this away.
So they gave up first blood on another kill, so that's 700 gold in kill gold, and then everyone had assists, that's another 300 gold chucked on top of it. That's 1,000 gold gone in kills just from that fight. And then the Herald gets 2 plates in return, which is 360 gold, and then maybe a wave, which brings it up to about 400, 450 gold.
Sure.
You're in the deficit of 500 by that point, however, Sengoku really indexed into this fight. At a point where Kennen had level 6, had his first AP coming through. It's not the biggest thing. He didn't have his full proto belt at that point just yet. And ended up splitting up the team. I think that Sengoku did an... The worst thing for me is that Sengoku did an okay job at surviving that team fight. It could have gone much worse. If that had been a 3-man cannonball, that fight would have been a 3-4-0, and that would have been effectively lights out even earlier into the game for that team. NT was the only person to fall from that. Appleman didn't flash away from the Asher. It goes for a 2-0, and at least they do end up getting the Herald as well. But you can see what's happening with these team compositions, just how easy they are to execute from the side of the Hawks if you're going straight for these team fights, as opposed to Sengoku, which need a lot of conditionals to fall into place.
It was constant problem solving from Sengoku Gaming. Like, they weren't winning lanes in the way we were expecting, so they came into the mid game even, which we've not seen in some time. They're used to just having advantages from fundamentals. We said that before. They didn't have that. They didn't have the team comp advantage, and then they had basically got devolved into 5v5s that were very challenging for them to win. They had one kind of team fight victory, inverted commas, after a Baron went down and they managed to pick a couple people off on the retreat.
Well,
that was pretty much it.
Let's go a little bit further back before that Baron comes in. Let's talk about the first Baron, which is where the Hawks were kind of playing around it. They had they had control of it. They even started it. It was a bait limit test. Difference is, it was actually the Spanish Inquisition, and no one ever expects the Spanish Inquisition, especially when it's the Fukuoka Inquisition, apparently, I'm guessing, in this one. Sure. And, well, they're able to get 4 kills and a Baron buff for it.
So, their primary weapons are Fear, Subversion, and huge cannon ultimates. That's all this other stuff. So, effectively, Sengoku get their first kill of the game onto Thresh, and they try and take the 5v4 and kill a Baron before the Hawks can get there, because they saw some people in the bot lane and all the other stuff. Jhin is not fast at taking Baron, not even that out a little bit, because at least his W has that percent HP damage, but it's not nearly as quick if he'd had any kind of faster attack speed AD carry. It's a similar kind of problem with Senna. We say that problem with her too.
Yeah.
Then Sengoku try and peel off the Baron with the Gnar ult finally available at the right time for them. So he hits on 2 people. It hits onto Honey, doesn't slam into the wall, doesn't get the stun. The other one stopwatched. And then Aramik comes in, has this defensive, not Kale ult, the Cannon ult, that's the other one. Which means that, so you can't even go into these people just stopwatched or been dragged a bit further forward. Honey just runs forward in the Ashe and just runs through the entire team. The one shot they had to try and affect that team fight was that Gnar ult. It wasn't quite impactful enough. And of course, it's not like the Nidalee can really one-shot everyone on the team as well. Maybe pick off one lucky target, but that wasn't nearly enough. And of course, the Nidalee can't even jump into the Cannon ult afterwards. They peeled off the Baron, lost the fight completely, and then they leashed the Baron over to the Hawks anyway.
Also an issue for Pyrion as well. Like, he was so far behind that he had at least hadn't snowballed, right? So
sure.
he was at what, Ludens and Fiendish Codex for a very long time. There was no Banshee's Veil, so every time he jumped forward to throw out Poke to beat some damage, he was taking twice that damage in return, and it meant that he couldn't do what you'd see Pyrion normally do with this LeBlanc, which is have that Banshee's Veil, hop forward, try and find something. Even that was just rough.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, initialize. Let's move on to Drake number 5, which was arguably the place where I think this game was fully over now for the side of Sengoku. This was the Drake where they're trying to get that Dragon Soul for Sengoku. They know they have to kind of fight for this at some point, and this is probably the best chance they're going to get, because if this game keeps going longer, it's going to get a lot harder. The Baron was coming up about 15 seconds later, and well, it ended up actually being a 4-0 for the Hawks, getting that Drake as well, and, well, stealing that Drake, the more importantly, as well as also getting an extended long fight, killing Enti at the very beginning to then eventually get 3 kills. The Hawks were all over them, weren't they?
They were. This was kind of the one faint silver lining for Sengoku Gaming, was that they had got themselves up to 3 Drakes. They had the Ocean Soul point, and maybe if they could secure the Ocean Soul, they might have something to play around. It is such a strong buff, and maybe that could buy them time, get them some fights they shouldn't win. And then, effectively, what happened in this fight is Black does get into the pit. It comes down to a smite fight, which is a little bit of a question mark for the Hawks there, who didn't sweep out the pit as well as they should have done.
I think this is the Drake before that, when Sengoku were on the dragon and then Aramid gets the flank.
Am I on the wrong one here?
I believe so. Which dragon are you talking about, Lexi? Is
Drake
the one
number
where
5.
The 5.
that was the final one.
Yeah, basically the last big fight.
Okay, so this.
So I was correct. It was Drake 5. There we go.
So
No more
scary
Drakes
like
were taken
that.
after that.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
Exactly.
so I thought you said that it was the Hawks that stole that dragon. I'm like, why didn't that happen earlier in the game?
No.
Anyway, yes, it was getting into the pit, so carry on. I'm sorry, my dude.
Shocking. Quite literally, because there's a cannon in the game. And
a bear.
they
And a
managed,
volley bear. Very shocking.
Yeah, and so the point was, at the back of that, they managed to... Blank goes in, the Sengoku Gaming are kind of like dancing around the edges trying to find something, but then, of course, they don't win the smite fight. Tossa goes to the edge, kills Blank with using the ultimate.
Sure,
at that
jumps
point,
in
the
and
chase comes out, that win condition is then broken. They get, I think, a second Baron out of that as well, from what I recall.
They also
and
pushed
it
mid turret as well.
Push mid turret, exactly.
Mid
And,
and Baron, yeah.
and like, that was the final last gasp, really, for Sengoku Gaming, who were in a pretty challenging position already, and that kind of faint silver highlighting was pretty well snuffed.
Yeah,
even if it did come down to a smite fight.
I mean, absolutely, that was kind of where it was snuffed. They did, as you already mentioned, end up actually getting a 3-for-2, so kind of nullifying part of that Baron play, but it was all a little bit too late, as the members of the Hawks ended up just pushing through bot lane and kind of brute forcing their way just through the team of Sengoku, as they were just so much further ahead. And, well, GG, well played to the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks. Commiserations to Sengoku, and hopefully, with some food for thought, and now a few of their wounds now hurt, maybe they're going to come back into week 7 with renewed vigor. And the thought that actually they should have had an opportunity at this gauntlet match, and maybe it slipped away from them. But with that all said, gentlemen, we're going to go on a very quick break here. And before you know it, we'll be right back to actually talk about our 3rd game for this week, which my notes are actually completely gone from me, so I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but I'm struggling horrendously right now, so I'm padding out for time, because you know what, that's just what we do over here.
It's the Hawks versus V3.
Is it the Hawks over versus 3-3?
It is.
Hawks versus V3.
Sounds beautiful to me. So we'll have the Hawks try and continue their reign of victory so far in Super Week, or will V3 continue to try and go, well, not continue actually, because they just lost.
They lost to CJ, but
winning
regained
again?
some form.
Yeah.
Regained some form.
Except they didn't really look too bad. So, yeah, return to form, winning the ways as always. Anyway, catch us after the break.